No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And welcome to this holiday hack. If you're just joining us for the first time in a month, we're talking through the most watched leadership videos on YouTube as curated by Generation Z and leaders and aspiring leaders of Generation Z. And, Lorenzo and I looked at our own research. We looked at AI, and we kind of came up with this list of videos that are being watched by these people. Our holiday hacks are done every year in order to, give people more time back with their family. These are shorter episodes, but the videos that we're talking about throughout these episodes are really worth watching, and you'll learn something new from each of them. On this episode, this is number 9 of 13, we're going to be talking about the video Building a Psychologically Safe Workplace by Amy Edmondson. And, when we first decided to do this, in my mind, I thought, okay, if we're coming up with 13 videos here and we're looking at who's watching them and it's Generation Z, like 7 are going to be about psychological safety. And I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't that many, but the idea that there would be none, it would be ridiculous. So I knew it was going to be in there somewhere. It was going to be either, Amy Edmondson or Timothy Clark or Stephen Shedletsky, something around the idea of how do you build psychologically safe workplaces. And so this video is kind of like the... if you are just kind of trying to learn about psychological safety and how to build the workplace that is psychologically safe, this is probably the intro video to it. And so if you want to be able to speak intelligently about what psychological safety is from the standpoint of the person who kind of almost invented the term, this is the right video for you, and I think it's a great one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know that we've definitely spoken about Amy's videos before and some of her work and the impact that it's had around leadership and the concepts and why they are so important. But I know we also talk a lot about kind of redefining what people think that it is when
Yes.
they hear the term psychologically safe workplace and the assumptions that come along with that. Because that's also important. I think sometimes we get these terms and they may get kind of painted into the corner based upon what people assume it to be without really diving into it. So I'm excited for us to talk about this again. To your point, like I kind of expected that we would see a couple of concepts, videos, or individuals when we talk about pulling this list together. So this one is not a surprise for me either.
You're right, for sure. I'm thinking to just even recently, I was on LinkedIn and there was a post from someone who they posted an article from a well-respected source that talked about how it's possible to have a work environment that is too psychologically safe. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I didn't think that was possible. And lo and behold, they were critiquing the article. And then, almost minutes later, a rebuttal was posted by some people who are really well known in the psychological safety workspace, including Amy Edmondson and then Adam Grant as well, talking about how the person who wrote this article, it doesn't have a grasp of what psychological safety is. Because if you did, then you would know that it's not possible to have a work environment that is too psychologically safe. You could have a workplace that goes off the rails in terms of not staying focused and not having good leadership because you attempted to create one that was psychologically safe and it was derailed by people who are using it for their own benefit and you don't know how to keep that in check. But that doesn't mean that it's too psychologically safe. It means you don't know how to lead your people. So the reasons that Amy gives as to why a person wouldn't say something. So a psychologically safe work environment is one where people feel confident to be able to raise their hand and say what's on their mind because they don't fear the reprisal from what they're about to say. That even if they're incorrect, that they'll be validated by the fact that they chose to say something, because you never know when those kind of instances will bring to light information that will really be beneficial for either the organization as a whole or for individual people within the organization. And she says the reasons that people would choose not to say something is because they're trying to avoid looking ignorant, incompetent, intrusive, or negative. And she's spot on. If I have chosen not to say something when in my mind I'm like kind of burning to say it, it's because I'm worried that people will think that the question's a dumb question. They're gonna believe that I am either weak or that have made a mistake already, and so I don't want to admit that. They're worried that, or I'm worried that I'm butting in where I shouldn't be butting in, that it's not my place to do so, and I'm worried that I'm going to be the lone naysayer, that I'm going to be critiquing something that has been long in place from the organization, and it's the status quo, and everybody agrees with it, and now I'm the person coming in and saying, maybe we should think about this differently. It's just easier to not say it and to go with the status quo. And so those are the reasons why people would choose not to say something, even when they may think it's important.
Yeah, she uses the term impression management, and kind of just that idea that you learn as a kid, really. And then as you get older, you kind of, you look around the room and say like, I guess I'll figure this out later. And what ends up happening is that it minimizes the ability for people to have better dialogue, more debates, innovation, learning for everyone, kind of like the look. If, a lot of times as leaders and with the team, we spend a lot of time saying, no, actually speak up and say the thing. If you have a question, ask the question. And while I don't necessarily like subscribe to the idea that there are no bad questions, because sometimes there are bad questions.
Sure.
That does happen because somebody's not paying attention, they're not understanding, they're not, putting in the focus they need to put in to ask the proper question in the moment. But asking questions is something that you want to happen pretty continuously for teams, because that's actually what allows there to be more dialogue to explain something to somebody. And then that also allows people that maybe, don't have maybe the courage or the confidence to say something or ask the question, to have them get a moment to feel educated or to ask additional questions so that they're walking away with more clarity.
Right. I think there's a lot of the assuming positive intent here when it comes to having a psychologically safe work environment. Meaning, if someone asks a question that is, to be quite honest, a stupid question, like a question that based on their position or the level of knowledge that they should be expected to have, or for whatever the reason, you as a leader are in the room, and in the back of your mind you're thinking, oh my gosh, like this is a problem here. This person's asking this question. The moment you assume positive intent in your own mind, and you can say to yourself that this person is not asking this in order to antagonize or to cause problems. They genuinely have this question. When this has happened to me, my knee-jerk reaction of judging the question as stupid, it comes from a feeling of insecurity, of knowing that if a person in the room has questions like this, what does it say about what I've done as a leader to set the situation up to make sure that either the right people are in the room, that they have the right vision around what we're doing, they have the clarity of what they're supposed to be doing. Like, if they have questions that I look at as stupid, doesn't that mean that I have not given them the information they need, that I haven't set them up for success? That, like, there are other reasons that kind of become a look in the mirror moment. And I think that's what causes a lot of leaders to kind of jump to this is a stupid question, because they don't want to admit that if there are questions that are happening that shouldn't be happening, it means that they've somehow fallen short of giving their people what they need. And so what I want to ask you is, how do you go through this? Meaning, if you're in a situation where you have, you've heard a question, and in your mind you're thinking, oh my gosh, why is this person asking this? Everybody in this room is looking at this person like they are ignorant or incompetent or intrusive or negative. How, as a leader, do you kind of respond to questions like that in a way that validates the action of speaking up without making the person believe that, without devolving into a conversation about the question that may not really need discussing? And so I want to ask you that, but first I want to give up to a word from one of our sponsors. All right, how do you validate a person's decision to speak up and say something to create that psychological safety, even in the instances where in your mind you're thinking that I can't believe this is being asked right now? It's
twofold for me, and I'll be the first one to tell you that people that know me, I would not be being honest if I said that I handle the situations with perfection and with an empowering attitude.
Right.
Sometimes I'd be like, "Did you just ask me that question?" So I have to be honest, right? I think sometimes that does happen. I will tell you that much of it is the relationship, who's asking the question, what are they asking, and my understanding of like a genuine question that they're asking because something hasn't connected or they really don't know. And take a second to say, like, in that moment, I want to validate, hey, you know what, like, that's a great question to ask right now. Let me tell you why. Because many of us in this room might just assume that everybody knows that, or that we've got plenty of experience, or that we're very confident with whatever it is that we're talking about. So I appreciate you asking that, because I think it's important for us to pause for a moment and just talk about why that's important. That's one way. And that I think is the right way to do it, to create the environment that you want to have in a psychological safe environment. Also, in a psychologically safe environment, if somebody's thinking out loud, maybe they haven't completed their thought yet, maybe they're kind of getting it out there, I think it's also okay to rib them a little bit, because I would expect to be ribbed the same way. And just say, like, well, okay, wait a minute. Did you just ask? And then they start laughing, like, okay, that's not, I know it's what I said, it's not what I meant, right? And then we have a little bit of fun. Okay, but what did you mean? Like, let's get down to the heart of it, because it wasn't, I don't believe it was coming from a place of just like not getting it. It's probably coming from a place of, I'm processing a couple of things in my head right now, and the question that I ask isn't the actual thing that I'm asking. But it's important though that we dig into that. Like well, hold on, let's break that down. Let's unpack that a little bit. Like, you're asking that for a reason. So what's that reason? And then giving that space for that to happen, I think, is also critical to have a great working environment.
Yeah, some people I know, they think out loud a lot. And if you know them well enough, and they get to the right place anyway, you just have to, like, not say something and allow them to get to the place where they go, oh, wait a minute, that's not a lot of times, like, if they're on their own, right? They'll realize that that's not the question they wanted to ask. They just happen to be saying they said the inside part outside, right?
Exactly.
And sometimes that happens. I've done that myself. I think what you said is key, though. It's the relationship and who's there. So if you heard a question like that from a person who was maybe 2 or 3 levels below you in an org chart, where you didn't have a relationship with them, that where you had a personal text message conversation going on over the course of years, and you've seen them outside of work before, it would not be the place to kind of rib them. It would be the place to sit there and to let them speak what they were saying, and to validate them completely, and then maybe have a one-off conversation later on with them or their leader about making sure that everybody's clear on things. But yeah, if you have a good relationship with someone, sometimes a symptom of a good relationship is the ability to say, what on earth are you thinking right now? In so many words. And there are people with whom I have a relationship that close where I can do that. And it doesn't diminish psychological safety to do that, but it can if you don't know who the external viewing audience is. So just because you have a good relationship with somebody in the room doesn't mean that everybody else in the room knows that level of relationship. And so you really have to be cognizant with this. It's not just about, do I have a good relationship with this person to where I can chide them a little bit, or I can, say something that might make them, feel a little bit sheepish, but we're fine when the meeting's over. If people watching think, oh my gosh, that's how they're going to react, that can still be a problem. So really know not just the person you're speaking to, but the audience as a whole, because it could have unintended consequences to do something that would normally be fine in a one-on-one, I think.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And have a great day.